wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner, and today's podcast will be on what to do when our kids don't do what we want. It's a long title, but we figured it's going to probably speak to quite a few mamas out there, probably all of us from time to time. And so we really want to dive into first a toolkit, then going the step beyond, which is the conscious part that we love. What's going on for you? What are the beliefs and the dynamics underlying any of those kind of situations.
Yeah.
But before we do, we just want to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe. There's a button on our homepage. If you just click that, fill out your name and email address. Once a week, you'll get a wrap-up email from us with all the links and blurbs to everything we've podcast, blog, socialed about, and you can pick and choose whatever
all of our
you'd like to.
musings for the week.
Yeah, musings for the week. Things that you and I have discussed that we're really vibing into, confused about, mulling over, conversations that we'd have between the two of us, or things we're loving on. Sometimes we go, this thing's amazing, and we think we should share it. So please jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe.
So this is a big topic, and it's one that I think every mum finds himself at. What to do when you find yourself in that uncomfortable place of really wanting to get an outcome and you're not getting that with your child, whether you want them to stop doing something or to do something, and you're finding yourself hitting a wall and engaging in like a battle of wills kind of thing. Because the reality is, it's like any relationship where you're both trying to not only meet each other's needs, but also kind of work together and be in space with each other and grow together, and that's going to have a rub. And particularly with children, that rub comes when we're really trying to get them to fit in with our day, fit in with our needs of running a home, or just basically moving through the day. And so we thought we'd dive right into with this topic and perhaps unpack it with an example of what it looks like when it feels like there's big resistance in our children and why that might be, and how to transcend perhaps the surface value perceptions that we might have about what's going on to look at what's underneath it, because with our kids there always is something underneath the external behaviour, particularly with young children.
Yes.
And we particularly cannot understand it.
Well, I think this topic probably generally applies more to the toddler, to preschooler and beyond, to be honest with you, but it's probably from 2 years old. I kind of think, that baby thing, they don't go to sleep when we want them to go to sleep, but you're not really dealing with the emotional, verbal and physical standpoints that they have when they have more sense of autonomy. And you have less control over their bodies and what they do and say, external to you. So we're more looking at what happens from 2 and beyond when we're looking at the toolkit here. The baby thing is kind of separate, and we're hoping that you can certainly use our masterclasses for crying, tears and tantrums, and how to listen and tune in, and also laughter release with babies as well. So go there with those ones. For this podcast, we're focusing more on the 2 and beyond.
And 2 and beyond, I think, is interesting because they have got that desire to expand into the world and also move away from us even more and more. They're not in our kind of vicinity all of the time. They're looking to form other relationships with other kids. They're looking to expand who they are well beyond us.
The parent I'm really sitting with this lately, that this what would you call it? I suppose it's a dynamic, this paradox between children seeking closeness and connection and also seeking separateness and autonomy. And it's this real dance in parenthood, isn't it? And depending on how well we manage that, to some extent depends on the ability of those children to function as adults and function in relationships.
That's really true. And I think also how well our children feel about making that leap and that kind of going away and coming back again and going away and coming back again. It reflects a lot on how we in ourselves are feeling about that. And perhaps we might jump in with a bit of a story around what went on for my 4.5-year-old this week, because it's a little bit about that. He had been gearing up for this, amazing 2-day holiday with my husband and his cousins, you know, they're going to go off in the car to Bendigo and like do this whole fun thing. And he'd been talking about it for weeks. And we had been saying to him, okay, well, what we might do is, you know, you go in the car with your pop and your cousin, and Dad will meet you there at the end of the day. It was going to be a big deal for him, though, because it was the first time that he'd gone anywhere without us, principally, or my parents, who he's really close to. He's not so close to the other side.
Yeah.
But that was really his choice, and he was really comfortable in it, and that was our plan. And we'd gone, you know, on Wednesday afternoon and got everything from the supermarket and packed his lunchbox. And so I got to the evening and I was like, okay, great. No, I need to get you an early night tonight. We're going to have dinner, bath. I'm going to put you to bed, and then I'm going to put Sylvie to bed. And that all went beautifully until I asked him to get out of the bath. You know, and at that point I was like, okay, in my head, yeah, you know, he'll take a little while, then I get her down, then I can go to bed myself because it's going to be a big night because she's having a hard time at night at the moment. And he wouldn't get out of the bath. Flat out refused. And
what was his tone, or how was he saying no?
He was just being very firm and just saying, no, I'm not getting out yet. I'm not finished yet. I'm not playing. I'm not done playing.
Was he making eye contact with you?
No, he wasn't making eye contact with me.
Was there a feeling of sort of mounting anger or aggression?
There was more of a sense of kind of apathy. So there wasn't any real strength of connection there. It was more just I'm not finished yet. You know, I'm staying put, and a firmness in it.
Yeah.
And because at this point I was still in my, I've got to get this done and this done and this done, I was like, in my mind, what? Like, what do you mean you're not getting out? Because I'm so not used to that. It's very, usually our bath times and bedtimes are very fluid. It's quite easy. And this caught me by surprise. And then I was like, hang on a sec. Well, I need you to get out because I need to get you to bed so we can go to bed, and then we all, you know, you have a really great sleep so you can go to Bendigo. And he's like, no, I'm not getting out. And so I found myself like getting into that kind of powerlessness feeling, because I was like, well, I can't just leave him in here. He's got a cold. He's going to get hit. The bath water will get cold. You know, all of that stuff. And then I sat with it and I thought, what is this? What is this resistance here? And I thought about the broader, you know, stuff that was going on. The fact that he was about to go and get in the car tomorrow, and then I thought, okay, maybe it's about Bendigo. And so I said, oh, you know, are you not comfortable about Bendigo? Do you not want to go? And he's like, no, I'm going to Bendigo. I'm going to Bendigo. And I still couldn't get him out. And at one point I got so frustrated that I picked him up and took him out. And then he raged and got really, really upset with me and was saying to me, like, no means no, which is this book that we always read around body autonomy. So he was really clearly telling me his no was don't get me out of the bath. But it was more than just the bath, and I could see, because things are always just more than what they seem.
It's never the straw.
This is just the surface thing.
Yeah.
And so I was just going, wow, okay, I don't feel comfortable like I did when he was a toddler, of really holding him in that. And so I allowed him to get back in, and I said, look, okay, I'm taking Sylvie to bed. I'm worried about you getting cold, but if you think you're okay, you stay here and I'll go put her to bed and then we'll talk. And I knew it was something to do with Bendigo, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then I called my husband and he's like, okay, just give him the choice of not going with his pop and see if that's what it is. And at this point I was thinking, okay, I'll do that. And Hugo at this point was like in fetal position up at the top of the bath, clearly distraught about something, because he wasn't even playing anymore. He was just not getting out of the bath. So this was, it's like the bath was his safety zone. It was like his life raft that he couldn't let go of. There was no, he wasn't getting out of there if his life depended on it, you know. And so then I put to him, I said, I wonder if what you're feeling right now is that you're not comfortable going in the car with your pop, and that's why you're not getting out. And so I said, what about if we change things around so that you go in the car later with Daddy and you don't have to go in the car with your pop and you stay home with me tomorrow? And he looked at me and his face just completely shifted. And he said, yeah, I haven't seen Poppy for a long time. I don't want to go with him. And I finally saw him, like the cloud that was in his eyes, the disconnection that was in his face, the resistance that was in his body melted away, because he saw that I saw him in that. But I thought, gosh, like so easily I could have just continued to try and railroad the situation to get the outcome that I wanted, which was get out of the bath so I can get you to bed and do all the nighttime stuff. And all he was doing was digging his heels in the way that he knew how to get the outcome that he wanted and to get the sense of safety that he was looking for that he didn't have in his perception around going in the car, you know, with his pop, which he wasn't sure about. And I thought how much we must do this, you know, as parents when we don't understand what's going on for our kids. And often what's going on for them is on some level what's going on for us, but we're not hearing it because we're not listening close enough. And so this was just played out, and it played out again in a couple of other areas of his behaviour too that are really showing how he's seeking to be heard and seeking connection through play and through sometimes acting out in order to get us back into the place he needs us to be in to feel heard again. Because we can, particularly with preschoolers, you can very easily assume that because they're very, very verbal now, because you can have great conversations with them, that they understand everything on your level. And I mean, I know as soon as you say that, it sounds futile because as if they do, but there can be very quickly the complacency there that says that. Like, certainly because we just chat all the time and we hang out at home a lot and he does his thing and I do my thing, and it can be confronting sometimes when he kind of doesn't do what I want, or there's this big blow up, and it's like because there's little bits and pieces that stack and stack and stack and stack with our kids, and if we don't see the little hints of it, sometimes it blows up like it did in this scenario. And some days we're better at picking up on it than others, and this is one of those days where at least I was glad I saw it. But it's just a great example of how we can start to ask questions about what's going on for our children more broadly that could be contributing to the behaviour that we're seeing.
Yes.
It's not about the behaviour itself.
No, it's not. I would have handled that differently.
Yeah.
So I definitely would have been hard-ass and taken him out of the bar. But let me tell you why. And I wonder if it's going to... I can feel my heart rate going up because I can literally remember scenarios where I've literally done that. But those scenarios are specific to my in-laws.
Oh, right.
So I wonder...
Oh, wow, this is so interesting. So I find this so perfect because obviously I needed to say this for you to go back to that story. And
yeah, because I can feel it in my body now. I can feel it right now.
The whole in-law thing.
The adrenaline thing, right?
Yeah, okay, so tell me about that.
So I wonder if that had have been your mum who he was going with and he was saying to you, but I don't want to go with, what does he call her?
Marnie.
But I don't want to go with Marnie. I haven't seen her in a long time. Would you have said, no worries, you don't have to? Or would you have said, oh, but da-da-da-da-da-da, and helped him transition through that? Because I wonder if it's reflective of your relationship as opposed to his.
Yeah, well, and I definitely think that that's certainly part of it, and that's the next thing that I wanted to get to.
Only because that I've done that.
And in fact, that this had played out was not surprising to me, because even in the afternoon, Marcus and I had been having lots of conversations about how we each felt about him going in the car with his pop. And my husband wasn't congruent with the choice. I was probably more congruent than my husband was after kind of sitting with it. But I certainly saw his resistance as a reflection of my own and our collective resistance. Yeah. But, I mean, there's been times where I've taken Hugo down to go and stay at Mum's and he's decided he didn't want to, and I've come back home with him. Yeah. So yeah, I have listened to it there, but I do get your point that actually what if it's just...
It's reaffirming, it's reaffirming your own, I wonder, reaffirming your own belief system of how, well, he doesn't put in the time to form a relationship, so fuck you, now you miss out too. Yeah. Do you see? And I kind of feel like there's this bit of, and that's definitely me stabbing the knife in a bit going, have you noticed yet? Yeah. He doesn't want to go with you. You know that? Yeah.
Well, I think for my husband, it's a little bit like, well, you don't listen to the kids. You just drag them around the whole place and just expect them to do what you want.
Well, they don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is how I did a child.
Totally. and on some
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and on some level, because when I said to my husband, okay, Hugo's decided he doesn't want to go, and he's like, okay, I'll call Dad. I'm sure part of Marcus probably enjoyed saying that to his dad too.
Yes, because part of me enjoyed saying that to my husband / in-laws. Yeah. I totally get it.
Because on some level it's us as children speaking up when we couldn't speak up before.
Yeah.
And this is the healing that happens on so many levels.
I know we've jumped ahead so many steps for you, but let's just kind of
hope people are safe with this.
I know, just sit with this story just a little bit longer. So if I think about if that was me now don't forget I'm on my 4th child, which is a very different scenario.
Yeah.
And I've done everything that you've done, Bridge. Like it's not like I haven't, but it's only with those, years passing and noticing that the dysfunction in my relationship with my in-laws got to a point where it was no longer serving me. It served me for a while to be angry at them.
Yeah.
And it served my inner child, and it served my whole story on parents and autonomy.
Yeah.
And the more I dismantled those stories and the more I opened up to the mirror of whatever they are is reflecting to me, and more specifically my mother-in-law, the less the sting was there that I needed to make them bad, because I feel like in my head I needed to make them the enemy. And the less I made them the enemy and the more I could see all of the ways they showed love that I was choosing not to watch because they didn't fit with my version of love.
Yeah.
And I could see, the beauty really in who they were. And I never had opened myself up to the beauty of who they were because I was so bogged down in the beliefs.
And judging all the things you didn't like. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my children were an extension of me, and I did definitely use them in a way, largely unconsciously, but not totally, because there's a part of me that knew I was enjoying it. Enjoying that they didn't go to them, or that they didn't want to, or there's part of me that enjoyed that, and I got to hold on to my story. So by the time I got to my 3rd child and I'd lived that, and I knew that path, I knew where that went, and it didn't help me anymore. It didn't create a smoother transition for my children. It didn't let them experience different genius and different ways of being in this world. And it didn't serve me because it meant I had less help.
Yeah.
So the more that I was justifying, which is perfect really, isn't it? Because the more my story was, well, I have to do it on my own because no one's really there for me, the more I was creating that story.
Yeah.
Because then they really weren't there. Because I didn't really want them there. So it was like this loop, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd done enough work by then to really dismantle that, and certainly meeting you, Bridge, and going even deeper into that, I really started to fall in love with my mother-in-law. And I could see all of the ways that by the flare-ups of emotions that I would feel was not actually her, it was me. And when I delved into why I was feeling that, and then it didn't need to play out with her. And so I could then invite my children into what I think is step-by-step processes on resilience, is step-by-step on, okay, you don't want to, okay, I'm willing to listen to that and I will hear it. But I'm not going to keep you stuck in fear either. So it's this dance, right? So I'm sure my kids have maybe not the bath, but been in that exact scenario before, and I would first have moved to trying to check in with them. So I'm cautious at the moment to say, I can see you're feeling, or I wonder if you're feeling, because I'm so aware that our subconscious is so entangled in our own perceptions of that situation that I don't know I can even read it properly. So I'm waiting for them to tell me. So I'll be going, what's going on for you right now? How are you feeling right now? I'll be doing that and waiting for those cues to move further. And if that really got me nowhere, then I would move next to choice. Okay, I really see that you want to stay where you are right now, doing what you are right now. But you now need to go to bed. So I need you to, and I would offer 2 choices.
I did that.
You did that?
I did a lot of choices.
Yeah.
It was no choices. I don't want any choices. Neither of them.
Yeah.
Which there was plugging me in.
Yeah, fair enough. So the plug-in is the next step, right? But let's just say, so I go, okay, so here's my boundary. You have to get out now.
Yeah.
This is, if I can't function well here, we can't function well here. So here's my boundary. I need you to get out of the bath. But first off, I've tried tuning in, checking in and listening. That hasn't worked. Okay, they're stuck in it. It's the silent tantrum, right? Because that tantrum's moved inwards. It's not outwards yet. So I'm going, okay, well, here's my line. You have two choices. You can hop out of the bath on your own, or I'm going to take you out of the bath, which you're not.
I did that.
It's exactly what you did. Yeah.
This
So
is
I
the
would
thing,
wait.
right? You know, like,
Yeah.
man, like sometimes it was like every freaking trick in the book I had, it was
100%
smashing
agree.
it.
Yeah, 100% agree. So you've offered choice. Okay, they're refusing. So then you actually have to follow through. So
Yeah.
this is the next part. It doesn't matter what choice you give or what consequence you give. It's the next step that actually is important. So I would have taken them out of the bath, kicking and screaming, because in a way I'm looking at that not as, well, I'm harming their body, I'm taking over their body, I'm taking control. I wouldn't be viewing it that way because that's my wounds.
Yeah,
I would
that's true.
I would be looking at it as, okay, tears are healing, and here's the straw that I'm providing you. Here's the wall to crash against, and the rage that is coming out is not so much against what I've done, it's the fact that I've unplugged that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I would have stayed with the rage and the tears and the emotion, and I would have just let it come out. Now, this is assuming I'm not in a triggered state. Let's just put that out there, because
Yeah.
a triggered state is completely different.
Yeah.
Let's assume I've read this situation as and I love that you said he's stuck in the bath, because it reminds me of so many labouring women as well who just want to stay in this tight little ball exactly where they are, and they don't want to move a muscle because they know if they move, it's going to hurt more.
Yeah.
But
I love that. I love that
through the
analogy
pain
too.
is where
Yeah.
you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the rock and the hard place, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at my child clinging for dear life onto what you called the safety raft, which I love. Thought it's great because it is.
Yeah.
They're hanging on there going, there's wildness if I step off of
Totally.
this, and I can't, I'm not choosing that right now because I don't feel like I'm prepared for it. But then I think our job becomes how to show them the path through it rather than trying to avoid it. So I would have helped them off that life raft. Sometimes quite violently looking, like flailing and kicking and screaming, and I'm doing the best I can to protect myself and
I
remove
think
them.
sometimes, you know, like depending on where we're at within ourselves is whether we can hold that or not, whether we have that,
So
have that in
triggered
us.
state, completely different. I
Or
think we come to
even
that.
if there's vulnerability.
Yeah, okay, fair
You know,
enough.
like around doing that. And that's obviously like reflecting on that dynamic with me and Hugo, because I was obviously also plugged into the potential outcome of him going, and maybe me not being congruent, that I was
Absolutely.
that I was certainly taking
so many layers,
you know,
right?
like and that's the thing, it's never just the isolated incident. Like the
ripples.
stuff around it is enormous.
It is enormous. So in terms of toolkit, I would have done all of that, taken them out, and then I would have go back to our, you know, Tears and Tantrums masterclass podcast. I would have stayed with that, and I would have allowed all of those feelings to wash through their body and come out, and I would have just held it. Because I would want them to form a relationship with this grandparent. And I don't want to judge that it's all jobs, because funnily enough, my in-laws are the same. So the day that my youngest spends with them is all jobs. So they go down the street and they do this and they do that. And can I tell you how much she loves it? She talks to every single shop person. They have a routine. She pays for the coffee. You know, like it's this whole thing. So who am I to judge that that's not quality time, right?
It's true. It's so true.
And learning about the world and money and shops and, anyway, side note.
Yes.
So, what was I saying? So the feelings of going with so I would be looking for, how do I resource my child to create the safety for them to move through something that seems scary? Because I don't want to hold them and maneuver them around that scary thing. I would rather hold them through that scary thing.
Yeah.
And I do that because I have absolute trust that they have everything inside of them that they need to do that. I'm not looking at them as the wounded, you know, kitten that can't handle themselves in this world. I'm choosing to see my child in this moment as a butterfly that has not yet found its ferocity.
Yeah.
And I have the toolkit to help them, because in some way that was me. I've already travelled that path. So I'm going to listen to how that feels. And then I'm going to listen some more if there's tears that follow the rage, which likely there would be. And then I'm going to hold the space for the reconnection that comes after the tears. And then we're going to talk about the toolkit that they need to get through that scary thing. And then I'm going to celebrate them getting through that scary thing.
Yeah.
So that's the toolkit that I would have stepped through, assuming I was conscious enough to know what was going on. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at any point in time, I haven't. And that's just simply because, let's say, I'm on my 4th child. I've travelled that path.
Yeah.
I've healed those wounds and I've moved through the next layer. That's how I'm here. So please don't think I'm judging you in any way.
No. And it's a reminder too that sometimes when we're so in something and we're in our own trigger, we can't see the wood for the trees.
No, we can't.
And that was certainly where I was at in this dynamic with him. Because I see now how much I was in the dynamic too.
Yes.
And when
it always is, though,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
You're like orbiting each other.
Yes. And this is the whole principle of when you shift something, they shift. But sometimes we don't always have the presence of mind to do it in the moment, and this is why I thought that unpacking this, and I love how much you've come in and given that perspective, because it shows what happens when we can bring that presence in as it's playing out.
And you know what this conversation that you've just said reminds me of is our group. This is the whole point of tribe. This is the whole point of being in a group where you're vulnerable enough to go, here's my thing, and I can't see the wood for the trees. And everybody brings their wisdom, and you find a path through it with that. Yeah. Like, this is the point of tribe, right? This is the community and the connection we're forming in this members group. Well, certainly through our courses, which then lead on to this members group. Yeah. Where that's a constant process, because all of us are on this path, right?
Absolutely.
You never get through it. No, it's just layer after layer after layer.
Exactly. And, you know, the thing is, whatever is a constant thing you keep running into with your child is that next layer that you're still working on, that next edge you're finding yourself at, which is that next part of yourself you're facing through the mirror of your child, which is that the 4-year-old self or the 3-year-old self, and what you are most trying to travel then, and what your child is helping you get through too, so that they can be more free to have that experience and build that resilience and move on.
Absolutely. So in terms of when our children are doing something, let's bring it back. Are you happy to just do a refresh on the toolkit? In terms of when our children are doing something that we're not congruent with, or that we don't like, there's steps that we want you to go through. Yeah. The first step is, what is the toolkit to get me through this situation with my child that's child focused? Yeah. And so we're advocating that we hold the space for emotions, that we tune in to what is going on for that child and allow it to flow through their body. And often that is holding the space of a boundary that makes that seem worse than what it is. Got to get worse before it gets better sometimes. Yeah. And then we're asking you to give them the steps to start building their own sense of autonomy and safety through themselves. And this is that fine dance between mum doing it for me and me finding the toolkit through mum. You know, that it's a very fine what's me, what's them, and how do I create my own separateness. And this is that handing and distilling down of information. And it happens in small steps, right? There's not just one day where you go, well, you're 13, now you're on your own. Yeah. it's these tiny steps.
Got that one sorted,
Yeah. And where we're building this sense of listening to their own, this is like street smarts, isn't it, in a way, listening to their own guidance system, as opposed to needing mum to be the guidance system, or mum needing to be the one who fixes or solves the problem. Is how do I fix and solve this problem? This is the definition of resilience, which in a way is how much has that child's autonomy been handed down. I think often that's what I witness in children that are extremely resilient and those that are not, is that sense of autonomy. What's been kept from them or for them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think we constantly need to revisit and look at, how much is what I'm doing empowering my child, or is it actually disempowering? Yes. And I think particularly too, when you get to that preschooler age, there are so many things that they can be doing for themselves, but for whatever reason are not. And that's another way that we can start to look at, okay, what's my role in this, and how can I create more of a boundary here and stand in that boundary even when it's uncomfortable for me, to hold that for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next step is what is going on for us in this dynamic. So please look back on our master classes for all of the ways to sit and be with your children. Certainly join us for aligned parenting, which actually we should almost like do our bling.
We should,
break point, because my computer died, so we haven't got our recorded audio thing. So let's just roll with it.
Yeah,
We've got aligned parenting coming up.
So it kicks myself next week on Monday the 16th of October, and it's a 2-week program. There's 4 modules, and it's all about, the 4 pieces are secure attachment, so how we really ground that in our children, build that relationship with them, and be that safe place for them to feel grounded in, but also go away from and come back to, and really expand their sense of self in a way that's safe. Then we've got the mirror, so we're looking at whatever's going on in our children, what is that representing for us?
Yeah.
And then we're looking at the family dynamics, so with our children, what's going on with them, what's going on with our partner or other siblings in the family, how is everybody helping each other grow? Sometimes that might look a little bit dysfunctional too, but actually very often that dysfunction is the function of the family. It is the function of everybody growing.
It's one of my most favourite parts.
Yeah. And then you've got playing the universe, so looking at the universal principles within a family. So often we have these idealistic views of families being peaceful or always getting along or always connected, but actually there's always a conservation of connection, disconnection, of peace and war. And that's always ever changing within
the more you seek peace, the more you bring
That's
more
it.
anyway.
That's it. So the more that you're looking for one, you're going to get the other to help you see the benefits of both of those and how they help, us grow together and individually. So that's a 2-week program.
And then the 4th module is all about toolkits.
Yeah.
So we get really specific on worksheets and toolkits to specifically handle yourself and your child.
And we've got a live webinar in the 2nd week of that as well.
Yes, and we'll be doing masterclasses through Facebook Lives in the private group. And then after you've completed that 2 weeks, you have 8 weeks to do the online content for yourself, but 2 weeks live with us. Then we move you across to our members-only Facebook group where there's daily conversations and check-ins, which is really fab. So for $150, you get 2 weeks with us and then continued support through the members-only Facebook group.
Yeah.
So please jump on. You've only got a couple of days left. It does kick off on Monday, the 16th of October. So nourishingthemother.com.au /online programs, aligned parenting.
Wicka, 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 wicka.
Oh, that's way better. How 90s.
Now we're back to the content.
So profesh.
Yeah. It's all A grade here.
All right, so let's assume we've held the space. We've moved through this situation of being really child-focused. The next step that we add with Nourishing the Mother is the conscious component. So we're really wanting you to look at this parenting and mothering gig is so... it's dynamic in its very dynamics, isn't it?
Yeah.
That whatever is going on for them is going on for us. And whatever has happened, every childhood wound that we've hung on to is going to be reflected by them. So what we repress, they express. And so the conscious component that we really want to bring that is beyond what we commonly refer to as conscious parenting is, what is this reflecting to you?
Yeah.
And that's kind of our jam, isn't it, Bridget?
It's totally our jam.
And I feel like if you're only doing one, if you're only focusing on the child, you're never going to get to the resolution because it's actually both.
Yeah.
There's healing for both of you
There
in
really
these situations.
is.
And if you're only doing half, you're only doing half. You never really get to
And also I think sometimes you end up just sort of chasing the perfect and good parenting without actually recognising whatever you're continuing to run into in your child is because you're needing to learn that and integrate something for yourself.
Yeah. So what's going on for you is where we really want you to start. So when you think about, let's even take your situation with Hugo the other night. So you had automatically started this process of focused on the child and you did all those steps that we talked about that, he refused, but that's fine. You still went through the process of offering them. In your own head, you were also doing a bit of kind of third-party consciousness of what's going on for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I know that there was also the subconscious component of this also playing out at the same time my story, right? So if we look at what was going on as a playing out of my belief that it wasn't safe for him to go with his pop, that's what I was also seeing in his behaviour. So this is why when we look at conscious at what's going on for me in that moment, yes, I was doing all of the physical things like taking a breath, grounding myself into my body, trying to recognise whether I was in like a stressed state and why was I feeling powerless in this moment, why was I desiring to control the situation, what would happen if I took a step back and looked at it with a bit of a bigger picture view, all of those kinds of things just to get a breath. But the other piece to the whole what's going on for me thing is what is the belief that I'm bringing into this moment and how is what's happening here playing out a version of my own belief system what would it be to challenge that belief system? What would it be for actually it to be safe for my son to go with his pop, for it to be okay for him to travel in a car for a long distance with somebody who I'm not entirely comfortable with, for it to be okay for him to eat a whole bunch of rubbish food and me trust that he would get everything that he needed and that it would be fine. All of those, you know, what are the beliefs that we are bringing into this situation?
Why am I not that comfortable with this person?
Yeah, and why? Yeah, exactly. Why am I not that comfortable? You know, what's my resistance here?
What's my story? What's, you know, even the feeling. Like, when I love that we say name it to tame it in our course, is that you've named the emotion. I feel powerless right now, and I'm seeking control to regain power. Yeah. Is just, where have I felt this before in my life? That trace back that feeling of powerlessness to almost... We rarely get to the original seed in our first thought processes, but just tracing it back in almost a timeline of your life. Well, I felt powerless. I had this exact same body feeling. Forget the situation. I had the same body feeling with my husband the other night, and I had the same feeling with my boss at work 2 months ago, and I had the same feeling with my mother when I was 12. Like, just that trace back, you can start to see how this is just on loop because there's something you haven't healed here.
Yeah. This is like your defense mechanism, which is also so interesting because then you know that it basically questions your idea of any kind of truth in a scenario, because if it's your defense mechanism, it kind of destabilizes the idea that what's playing out here in front of you with your child is truth. It's something to be understood and dismantled and moved through, not for us to, you know, ferociously respond to and stamp out, which might be what our kind of animal kind of automatic behaviour might want to do.
Yes, so we really want you to do a self-check-in. What's going on for me right now? So all of those questions we just listed are a great place for you to start, and looking at the beliefs that are underlying your feelings and your thoughts in this particular scenario. Where have those beliefs come from? Where have I picked them up? Are they mine? Do I still wish to hang on to them? All of these types of questions. The last point that we want you to consider is the family dynamics component. So you are far better to talk about this than me, Bridge. So do you want to kind of wrap up where we'd like you to go with this?
I think the family dynamics thing is an interesting one to look at, in the sense of, if you perceive that you're perhaps challenging your child or conversely over supporting them, then where are they getting the opposite of that? So where are they also getting the challenge or the support, or the person coming into them and giving them the connection that you perceive that you're not giving them?
Because like you with your child feeling vulnerable about this situation, how much does that call you in to offering huge amounts of support because he's facing challenge?
Yes.
And in which case, how perfect is that? Because perhaps you've been feeling disconnected, perhaps you hadn't given him much one-on-one time, perhaps you've been toying with, I really need to connect more with him.
Yep.
And boom, he's bred this situation that provides all of that for you and him. Just looks different to what you thought it would.
And then you also look at, in terms of family dynamics, in this scenario, how it makes my husband and I come together in unity against the in-laws.
Yeah.
Because it was a bonding exercise for us to kind of come together and realise that, okay, we're going to support our son in this, which is really supporting our own beliefs and keeping our own beliefs intact, which is not a bad thing, because it brought peace within our family unit and more warring against the outer. And the reality is that there's always a conservation of peace and war all the time. So if you're not having war within the immediate family, then there'll be war within there'll be war in the extended family. If you're super close with your mother, you might be challenged with challenging your husband. If you might be, you know, loved up with your husband, then the challenge will be the kids. That's always moving. And so sometimes we can't understand exactly why it is that we're responding in the ways that we're responding, but there is wisdom there. And so often it is in these family dynamic kind of relationships and the benefits that we're seeking to get through connection with loved ones. And we'll sometimes get those through what plays out with our kids and what we're asking ourselves to re-experience through our own childhood through the mirror of our children.
And what I love about this is it really removes, well, certainly for me, and I imagine for you, Bridget, removes the sting of the intensity of getting wrapped up in that emotional ride with that particular scenario, because all of a sudden it moves you into this state of gratitude where you're like, oh my God, okay, this is what they mean when they say it's all love. Yeah. Because even though this situation is challenging for me, and it's challenging for my child, and it's challenging for my beliefs, and it's challenging in the awkward conversations I have to have and all of the rest of it, how much is this serving what I was seeking in the last couple of days, serving my relationship that perhaps I've been wanting more connection in anyway, serving the connection I want with my child. Like, how perfect is this scenario, and therefore how genius is this manifestation?
Totally.
So it allows you the love that's already wrapped up in that, and I think it allows you then to swoop into, and for me, I certainly think this, that being able to look at the perfection there allows you to really get that concept and feel it in your body of the universe is always supporting you. And I think that certainly fuels me with a greater capacity to hold the space for helping my children move through tough stuff, because I'm not so stuck in the wounded victim part of it.
Yeah, of trying to save them.
I'm more sitting with, I know this is hard, but it's also perfect.
Yeah.
And we're going to get through this. And that's resilience. Resilience is knowing something's hard, but you're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're stuck in the victim and you don't want to ever enter it.
Yeah, and you just keep dodging the thing. You keep dodging the stimulus, but you can't dodge it forever.
No.
You know, we know this intuitively. And so we're going to keep creating scenarios to push through. And our kids will keep creating them for us so that we grow through them too.
Which is the perfection of the parent-child dynamic.
It really is.
And that's everything we bring to aligned parenting. We just absolutely love and have such reverence for just the profound nature of this job that you are doing that largely is consciously unrecognised. And yet we want to say, look at this perfection, look at this genius, look at this is the universe in action, and it's within you and your child and in your family. Like, this is amazing. And so if you're really ready to break that apart, that's really what we would love to bring to Aligned Parenting with you. That's our whole ethos, is all the holding space stuff for kids. Sure, it's a toolkit that we provide, but we're really also wanting to take you into a further expansion of what consciousness is for you, what connection is for you, and what that looks like within yourself and your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a couple of women who get their husbands or partners to
do it together. How sweet is that?
Yeah, which is really great, because there's heaps and heaps. If your husbands are anything like ours, they never wanted to read a book.
No.
So,
but they might jump on a webinar, or they might watch a 5-minute video.
Yeah, it can be a really great way to involve them, you know, particularly if you've got a strong interest in gentle parenting, respectful parenting, and really wanting to grow yourself on this motherhood journey. This is a really lovely way to involve them too, because we've had some great feedback from dads and they got lots out of it.
It's been delightful, hasn't it? I responded to an email this morning about that too. So good. I was like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, good.
How fun. Anyway, I digress. So jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au/online programs, Aligned Parenting, to join us on Monday, the 16th of October.
Yes.
And then from henceforth in our members only group, which is just so gorgeous. I love on it so hard. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Golly gosh, we're so just in love with the fact that we get to talk about this stuff that lights us up and share it with a community of women who also feel lit up and validated in this experience of the intensity of motherhood. We really hope that's what we're providing here, as well as the profoundness that's in that intensity. So connect with us on Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. We are trying really hard to push our comforts levels for Facebook
and do
Live.
Facebook Lives, yeah.
And then we text each other afterwards, oh my God, that was excruciating.
Yes, so go gently.
To connect with you, Bridget?
Yes, suburbansandcastles.com. And I do want to mention...
I was going to say, your next movie?
Yeah, in November we've got a film called Heal coming up.
I know, I really want to see this.
Which is all about essentially so much of what we talk about, which is the idea of life and our bodies reflecting us.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.